boys and girls, over the past unit, we learned a lot about fractions. We learned about adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing fractions with like and unlike denominators. We also learned a lot about mixed numbers and improper fractions. For instance, this is an orange. It's a whole orange. If I was to cut this orange in half, like this, I would end up with 2 halves. The example that I just gave you with an orange is a real-life situation of when we would use fractions. Here are some other ways that we would use fractions in real-life situations.
Fractions aren't so scary, let me tell you why. Think of food and money, won't you give it a try? 1/4 of a dollar is 25 cents. 1/8 slice of pizza, that's money well spent. You can't go a day without a fraction. They're with you morning, noon and night. When you're thirsty, tired or hungry, a 1/4 pounder sounds just right.
Wait! Do you guys see that last picture? Yeah, that one. The one with the measuring spoons. Kind of like these right here. So with baking or cooking, measuring spoons are another real-life example of fractions that we use. Now, our activity to do in groups of 4 is going to be really fun. We're going to be cooking it up with fractions. So let's go ahead and discuss exactly what you guys are going to be doing. So this is a worksheet that we're going to be filling out. It's called Cooking It Up with Fractions. Now remember, you guys are going to be working in groups of 4, and each of you is going to be assigned a certain chef title. One of you is going to be the executive chef. Now the executive chef is in charge of overseeing the group as a whole, ensuring that it's done in a timely manner in an orderly fashion, and then in the end they're going to check all the math, make sure it's correct, and then they're the ones who are actually going to turn in this assignment to me, which is due tomorrow after our math period. So you're actually going to have 2 full, about 45-minute time periods to work on this, and then tomorrow it will be turned in. The sous chef is the next person. Now this person's like an executive, the executive's assistant basically. Their job is to oversee the senior chef and the demi-chef and to ensure that all the work is done correctly and that it's submitted to the executive chef when it is approved by the sous chef. The next person is going to be the senior chef. Now the senior chef's job is to actually fill out all the information about the ingredients, about the serving size, doubling, halving the recipe. Their job is to answer all the questions, make sure it's done completely, and then hand it into the sous chef for review. The last person is going to be in charge of being the demi-chef. Now the demi-chef is actually going to be the person who's in charge of finding the recipe online, writing down the recipe name, the recipe website name, and the URL, which is the website address or the Uniform Resource Locator. And their job is to answer all that question before they hand over the worksheet to the senior chef. Now remember, everyone is working as a team. Alright, so the first thing I want to show you is some of the recipe sites that we're going to be going on. Now, one of the recipe sites that you can go to is called allrecipes.com. Now, you can also go to myrecipes.com and foodnetwork.com. These are all on the board, the whiteboard. So if you forget which ones you can use, look up there, and those are the 3 websites that you can use. They each have a search bar where you can search for any given recipe that you want to find. So as a group, when you decide on one, maybe you want to do some kind of fruit punch, maybe you want to do chocolate chip cookies, it's up to you. So let's say I want to do chocolate chip cookies. Okay, well I'm going to type in chocolate chip cookies. Oh, it was already coming up because I searched for it before. But let's say we want to do chocolate chip cookies. Now what's going to happen is it's going to come up with a bunch of different recipes for chocolate chip cookies. Now you can look and see which ones have really good reviews, and like this one right here has 1,288 reviews and really good ratings. So maybe we want to make these outrageous chocolate chip cookies because those sound really good and they got really good reviews. So at this point we're going to go down and we're actually going to take a look and see the ingredients on here. Now, I do require 3 things. First of all, you have to have a whole number. And right here, I do see quite a few whole numbers. Here's 1. You have to have a fraction. Here's like 1/2. Here's 1/3. So there are fractions. But the one thing I do not see on this recipe is a mixed number. And you have to have a mixed number. Remember, a mixed number is like a whole number, like 4, and then a fraction like 1/2, okay? And I do not see that, so that means that this recipe cannot be used. So I'm going to say, okay, well, you know what? We're going to have to go back and find a different recipe. So I'm going to decide to go back and see if I can find another recipe that might have that mixed number I'm looking for. So here's one, Beth's Chocolate Chip Cookies. Has really good reviews. Let's scroll down and see. Yeah, so this one's really good because as we see right here, just bringing up my pen again, we do see that this one does have our mixed number, 3 1/2. It also has whole numbers, like 1 teaspoon of salt, and it has fractions, like 2/3 cup butter flavored shortening. So that meets all the qualifications of having the 3 types of fractions. Now also, my other rule is that it has to have at least 5 ingredients, and this one obviously has more than 5 ingredients, so we're good. So let's say this is the one that we decide to use. I'm just going to go ahead and bring up my Word document and minimize it so we can look at it at the same time. Okay, now remember the demi chef is going to be in charge of filling out all the information about the recipe name, the website name, and the URL. So the recipe name that we have on here, now we see it right here, Beth's Chocolate Chip Cookies. So that's going to go right here. So you'd be writing Beth's Chocolate Chips Cookies, chocolate chip, okay? Now obviously you would have more room to fill it out, but I'm just going to do it like that. You are then going to write down, the demi chef would then write down the website name. Now we know that this website name was All Recipes. Now remember, you could also use My Recipes, and you can also use foodnetwork.com. Those are the different ones. Then lastly, the demi chef is also going to write down the URL for this website. Here's our URL, and it's located right up here as the address bar. So this whole address bar needs to be written in this area right here for the URL, okay? Make sure you include the whole thing and not just part of it, or else it won't take us to the right place. Alright, now the paper is going to be handed out off to the senior chef, and the senior chef is going to be the one who's in charge of writing down all this information. They're first going to do the ingredients, and in here you see here's all the ingredients in this area. So however many ingredients there are is how many ingredients you need to write down here. So the first one that was on there was butter flavored shortening. So I'm just going to write shortening. Okay, the other one was butter. The next one was sugar. Okay, and you're going to go through and write down all these ingredients, not just, 3. You're going to write down the whole recipe. Then, the next thing that they're going to do is they're going to take a look at the original recipe. And looking at the original recipe, we need to figure out the original serving size. So right here it says, original recipe makes 5 to 6 dozen. So in this area right here, we're going to write 5 dozen. Okay. Then, as a group, you're going to look at the recipe and make sure you write everything down. So for 5 dozen cookies, how much butter flavored shortening do we need? Well, 2/3 cup. So in here, you're going to write 2/3 cup. Okay. How much butter do we need? Another 2/3 cup. How about sugar? We need 1 cup. Okay, so your job is to go through and fill out the whole recipe as to what we need for the ingredients. Next, as a group, your job is to then decide what you want to do. Do you want to double it? Do you want to triple it? It's up to you. But remember, you have to do your math the right way. So let's say that we're going to decide to double our recipe. Well, if I double a recipe, I'm going to be multiplying by 2, of course. So here I'm going to go times 2, so I know what I'm doing. And instead of having 5 dozen cookies, I'm now going to have 10 dozen if we were to double it. Okay, so then in this area over here is where you're going to show your work. So in this first box, I'm going to show my work for doubling the recipe. So originally it called for 2/3 cup, 2/3, and I'm going to be timesing that by 2. And remember, we write 2 as a fraction by putting it over 1. And you just multiply straight across. So 2 times 2 is 4, and 3 times 1 is 3. So we end up with 4/3. But that's an improper fraction. So again, if you need more work, you can do it on the back of the paper. But we're going to basically do 3 divided by 4. We know that 3 goes into 4 once, with 1 left over. So it's going to end up being 1 1/3 cup of shortening that they need. Once you do that, now you're going to take a look, and everyone has to do this. You don't get a choice as to which one you want to do. You're going to do half of the original recipe. Now when we're looking at the word of, we know that of is automatically multiplication. Now half of means that we're going to be multiplying by what fraction? Well, it says right here, half. So it's going to be multiplying by 1/2. So in this other area right here is where you're going to do the same thing for the shortening, but instead of doubling the recipe, we're going to be halving the recipe. So you would have 2/3 times 1/2. 2 times 1 equals 2. 3 times 2 equals 6. So you end up with 2/6, which can be reduced to 1/3. So you're going to end up needing 1/3 cup if you're going to half the recipe. So basically that's how you do the whole thing, and you need to make sure that you're doing it for all of them. So for the butter, make sure you answer it and show your work. Same thing for the sugar, show your 2 answers, show your work. And once this is done, then it's going to be handed on to the sous chef, which will then hand it over to the executive chef, and basically that's how the whole thing is filled out. Welcome back, chefs. Thank you for all your hard work. It was sure a lot of fun realizing how fractions really are in everyday life. So let's go ahead and get busy and cook up some of these recipes that you made, and let's see how great of a chef you are.